after I start this, I'm gonna kind of share it around, kind of think it, kind of give people a few minutes to come in. We're live right now, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. So okay. Um. So how's your day been today, Chuck?
Good, productive. Got some writing done, some rewriting done.
That's always good.
Always good.
Yeah. What kind of stuff are you working on?
I did a couple of things on. I did a couple of episodes of Something Big for ArcTunes today, and I had to do final edits on a Levon Kade novel that I just finished.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right.
I got my proofreader sent me back his nitpicker copy, and I had to go through and do corrections. So.
Oh, okay. So yeah. I sent you the link to the news stream in private chat if you want to tweet that out to kind of your people and whatnot.
All right.
So yeah, just gonna send this out to a few more people, and okay. So, Chuck, how long have you say you've been in the industry?
I guess since '86 full time.
Okay.
Dabbled a little before then, worked in different areas before then. But yeah, I've been full-time comics since '86. I haven't looked back.
What brought you to the industry, would you say?
I just loved comics. I just love the medium. I love the characters too, but mostly I just love the medium. And I've always been fascinated with it. I read comics before I could read. I basically learned how to read from comics.
Yeah.
It's the only thing. I never had a plan B. It's really the only thing I ever wanted to work in was this area.
Okay. So, like most people, we say we're guided by our inspirations. What do you consider to be your inspirations for your writing, and whatnot?
Steve Ditko was a big inspiration to me early on.
Okay.
Even before I knew his name, I knew his artwork.
Right.
I thought it, and then I'm old enough that I was around when Spider-Man was introduced, and that was a total game changer for me. That was like, wow, this is a great comic book. I read comics for fun. Everybody read comics back then, but this one is something different, and it really interested me in the process. How was this created? Why is this comic so different than the others? And really made me start thinking about comics in a new way, and kind of led me step by step to wanting to be a comic creator.
Okay, nice. Yeah, Ditko is really really amazing. Now, did you get into any of his other work, like some of the stuff like his Mr. A character and whatnot?
Yeah, I pretty much followed his career. I mean, I only learned recently that he suffered from tuberculosis, which explained a lot of the gaps there where we didn't see him for a while. So I did not know that until recently. And and I actually got to meet him in the Marvel offices and talk to him for a little while. So I'm one of the rare individuals who got to meet Steve.
Yeah, it's got to be crazy. One of the things that I learned is he was publishing Mr. A comics up until a few years before he died.
Yeah,
really interesting.
Yeah, him and Robin Snyder were continuing doing work together. So I've always enjoyed him. That idiosyncratic style that he had. But for me, mostly, Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. I mean, they just sort of they were so different than anything else out there.
Are you excited for the new Multiverse of Madness movie coming out?
Yeah, I like the trail. I'm not, I think a lot of the Marvel stuff's, going down a weird path I'm not interested in, but I am interested in the new Doctor Strange. And I enjoyed the most recent Spider-Man movie. I thought that was a lot of fun.
No Way Home was so good. I loved it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I hope they keep doing those kind of movies. Staying closer to the source material and having fun with it.
Yeah. For me, No Way Home kind of felt like the first real Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. I love him. I feel like Tom Holland is a good actor. He's a good fit for that version of Spider-Man.
Right.
But the first two movies were for me were kind of like Iron Man light kind of stuff.
Yeah. It was a little too tied into all the rest of the continuity. They didn't feel like Spider-Man movies.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I got a list of questions here. What are some like some of your favorite characters that you've worked on in the past? I know you've had like a wide gamut and whatnot. Which ones to you were the most enjoyable to work on?
Well, I mean, blessed enough to get to work on Batman, which is something I never thought would happen.
Yeah, it's a childhood dream of many.
I wasn't one of those guys who trotted up to DC with my great Batman ideas. I knew that was like everybody wants to write Batman, so I don't want to get in that line. So I went for other ancillary characters, but I never thought I'd work on Batman. But I got invited to do that Robin miniseries, and it was a success. So they wanted to keep me around, and thankfully, I worked on Batman for 11 years. And, it was a great honor.
Because personally speaking, the late 90s, early 2000s was kind of like my most active year consuming comics, and it just seemed like kind of like in the late 90s you were doing all the side Batman books, like you did Robin, Nightwing, Catwoman, you wrote,
Right.
like you're doing all of them. Your name was everywhere. And
I was on basically 4 titles a month. Once I got up and running at DC, it was 4 titles a month for my entire run there. So, and usually, always Batman related in some way. Even Birds of Prey, it's Batman related. So I was kind of in that office.
Yeah. So, kind of getting onto Nightwing a little bit, who is my favorite comic character. Your run is one of the things that really got me into comics, and kind of want to touch upon it. So, how was it like kind of working with Scott McDaniel on the art kind of for that stuff? Because to me, that like that early Nightwing run is really iconic.
Well, I mean, I was familiar with Scott's work, and I had seen something he had done. I think it was called Assassins, and I really loved it. And like 2 weeks later, they asked me if I want to take over the Nightwing book. It was initially supposed to be written by Denny O'Neil and Alan Grant, but I never did find out why they backed out of it. And then it was offered to me, and I said, they said you'll have Scott McDaniel, and I said, well, what's the deal on the book? What do you want it to be about? And they said, well, Nightwing's in his own city. It's called Bloodhaven. It's up to you to decide what that city's going to be like. And my editor, Scott Peterson, said, the only other thing I want is I want a Jackie Chan movie every issue. So with Scott McDaniel, that wasn't hard to do. I mean, usually, I write full script and I block my action scenes out. I didn't do that with Scott. I would just say, look, for the next 5 pages, this happens. And this is where it has to end. And
because I think Scott was really good at doing fluid characters, fluid arcs. Like there'd be like panels where Scott would have him like doing Nightwing, doing the trapezing thing. Like there's one panel that I really like where it shows him going through his different costumes. I don't know if that kind of rings a bell, but like that's kind of one panel that really rings out to me.
I wanted to leave him room for that kind of stuff. Also room for his insane angles. I mean, his 23 point of perspective, bird's eye shots of Bloodhaven and stuff like that. I didn't want to harness him in any way. And so, I mean, he never disappointed, as you will readily agree.
Oh, yeah. I really like what you're doing Nightwing. You're kind of just building out his own universe. Like, you kind of gave him his own rogues gallery. Yeah. I really liked kind of the stuff you did with Blockbuster and whatnot. I like that storyline. And I know Devin Grayson kind of picked up that torch a little bit with what you're doing. To me, it was like the Chuck Dixon, Devin Grayson run is what I'm familiar with. Both of you people really did a really great job on that book.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't want him to be Batman Jr., so I wanted to make the book very much different from the other Batman.
Yeah. And you certainly did that. You certainly, like, for example, I don't know if you knew, but Lady Vic showed up on Titan season 3. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I had heard
when I saw that, because like I always thought Lady Vic was kind of a really, really interesting villain that really should have gotten more screen time, and I'm actually happy to see it happen.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I wanted him to have his own villains for sure. So and plus, it was in a period where DC was offering participation deals. So any opportunity to create new characters that might go on to something else, might be an action figure someday. I wanted to do that. So there was 2 reasons.
I'm sure you got a pretty decent paycheck when season 3 of Titans dropped,
Yeah. They send out a little money. I'm happier when it goes to toys. Lego particularly. Lego's been very good.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
they always want those kind of points. Now, one thing I kind of wanted to touch on, which I don't think many people have asked, like everyone wants to know about Batman and whatnot, but obviously you worked on Wheel of Time, you
yeah,
know, and I'm a huge Wheel of Time fan. Like, it's my favorite book series of all time. And so when I saw this, I was like, oh, Wheel of Time graphic novel. Then when I saw your name, I was like, oh, even better. You know, my favorite writer's doing it. And honestly, I feel like you did a great job with this. I mean, you kind of pretty much, took the book verbatim, but it looked really good.
yeah.
Could you talk about the process of getting onto the Wheel of Time book? Like, did you meet with Harriet? Was Robert Jordan still alive when this was going on?
When Jordan was still alive, when I first started working for the Dable brothers, when I did,
Okay.
I adapted the New Spring. So he was still around, and he was, looking over everything. And so the Dable brothers basically hired me. They asked me if I wanted to do it. I came on board, and the biggest challenge is that Jordan's work doesn't readily lend itself to being adapted to comics. There's a lot of internal stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff going on that's not visual. It's
Yeah.
either character or whatever. And so I had to find a way, because it's a fantasy story and it's a comic story.
Mm-hmm.
It's a totally different medium than prose or even movies, where I needed a lot of eye candy. And there's not a lot of
Yeah.
eye candy in for long stretches in the book. So
Oh, trust me, I know.
whenever I came across something, like they would mention a battle that had happened hundreds of years before, I'm going to show that battle. so I would show that, and that would open the book up a little.
I bet you wish you could have done a book on the War of the Shadow. That would have been really good for you.
Yeah, but it was a bit of rough sledding, but that's what they brought me there to do my party trick of turning prose into comics. So
now, ultimately, how far did you get into the book? Like, were you able to completely do Eye of the World, or did you go into Great Hunt, or I can't remember how far you got with that?
I believe we just did. I just did New Spring and Eye of the World, and those are the only ones.
Okay,
and then it all kind of folded.
So. Well, the obvious elephant in the room is, what are your thoughts on the Amazon series? Now, personally, I think they kind of really just threw out the book and kind of did their own thing. But I want to hear your thoughts on it.
I'm not happy with anything Amazon does. I mean, there's a Amazon's like going to an ice cream store and there's only one flavor. Everything, there's a sameness to Amazon product that's really disturbing to me. It's all sort of like toned down and politicized, and just I don't know. It's just forgettable. Is the word I would use.
Like, I've heard good things about Jack Reacher, but like I think that's kind of more of an outlier than anything else.
Yeah. I mean, what they're doing with Lord of the Rings is a travesty.
Oh yeah, don't get us started on that one.
I think that's the Lord of the Rings adaptation from Amazon is the breaking point. This is where the woke entertainment industry breaks, because people are so angry about it.
And plus, they're not even trying to hide like the stuff, like they did the whole YouTube video of the super fans, and they took it down. It's like it's just getting more and more obvious, and this is kind of the thing that I've been seeing is like more and more of like the quote unquote normies are like seeing what's going on, and it like look at what's happened with Disney. Like they just got their special privileges taken away. Like that is going to hit that's hitting them where it hurts. Like, trust me, Disney's going to be pendulum swinging pretty quickly.
Yeah, I would hope so. You would think that earnings would be important to them as well. And this idea that the fans don't matter. Okay, forget fans. It's your audience. You're saying your audience doesn't matter. And that's, to me, when I'm writing to entertain myself. I'm enjoying it myself. Mm-hmm. But there's always in the back of my mind, I've got an audience that potentially is going to be reading this. And I have to give them what they want. Not necessarily in the way they expect it, but they pick up a comic book or they pick up a novel, they expect something. And I've got to deliver that. Otherwise, I'm not doing my job. And to just say, well, to hell with the audience, we're going to do what we want in service of, I don't know, their own ideology, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's called entertainment, not indoctrination.
Well, tell that to them, like, you know, like, oh, it's like, oh, you're saying we're indoctrinating them? We weren't, but we're going to now, you know, like,
yeah.
It's just crazy. Like, as a creator myself, I'm indebted to my fans. Like, they fund my stuff. Without them, I wouldn't be doing this. And
Right.
I just can't get it through my head of fans say we don't want this, and they go and not support it. Why would you go and insult your fans and say, oh, you're just racist, blah blah blah? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, it's one thing to say, like, okay, this is my vision, you'll like it when it comes out. Like, okay, I can kind of see up to that point. But when it comes out and people don't like it and they don't buy the product, then you go out and insult them. That just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know, to me, if you're doing it in mainstream entertainment, you know, you're not writing the great American novel, you're not trying to change anybody's mind. You're trying to make your work as universally accepted as possible. So as many people as possible are going to want to read it. I mean, I learned that when I was on Savage Sword of Conan, my editor, Larry Hama, he told me one day that he says, most of our letters to Savage Sword of Conan are from either senior citizen homes or housewives. I would never have thought of that. You know, I always thought it was like, you know, guys that belong to biker gangs or something, you know, reading Conan. But it wasn't. Our loyal fans were not what I would have thought of as Conan fans.
It's something that I feel like mainstream still hasn't gotten. Women like sexy bodies. You know, it's like, why do you like, I would say Aquaman made $1 billion based off of Jason Momoa's abs, you know?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I mean, I think about a female audience when I'm writing, because I mean, once upon a time, females bought more comics than guys. I mean, they ran the circulation with romance comics and Archie and things like that.
Archie still does gangbusters. Like, Archie still sells like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if you can capture a female audience, you got it made. I attest that the large part of the X-Men's success over its run has been because it has a large female readership. I had a large female readership on Nightwing, which was enormously helpful. And the thing to remember is they like a story. They want a story, you know.
Yeah, and that's kind of a thing that like both Nightwing and X-Men did, is they have that good interpersonal melodrama. Like, I know kind of in early Nightwing, you were kind of pulling a Mary Jane Watson with that one Tenet, you know, like what she looked like. Like, I was reading that. It's like, like, Chuck, I know what you're doing. You're pulling a Mary Jane Watson. I mean, it worked well, but like, you know, like that kind of stuff. Like, is she gonna be ugly? Is she gonna be dog? And then like you had your fate, you know, Tiger, you hit the jackpot moment, and then like, you know, him trying to be a cop and like the duality of it, and, like the whole like the corrupt cops rule Bloodhaven, and like the good cops had to go in hiding. I really like that storyline and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, you know, because I mean, when you're writing for guys, as long as the hero's a badass, they're happy, you know. But when you want to write for men and women, you have a badass who has complications in his life.
Yeah, and that's something I feel like we're still kind of struggling with. Like, I'm not just saying mainstream media, but also almost all writers in general, myself included, is kind of striking that balance between badassery and good characters.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, but you never let the characterization get in the way of the story. Plot comes first. Plot always comes first. It has to. But like I'm saying, you know, if you're gonna, it's not hard to interest guys in a story if a lot's going on. But
bang, boom, pow.
For women, you got to have those honest personal relationships. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm watching some, you know, bloody shoot 'em up movie, and my wife's walking through the room. She doesn't care at all. But then if there's a child or if the guy's wife shows up, then she'll go, "Oh, he's married? Oh, he has a son or whatever." And
Die Hard.
He's drawn into the story by that.
It's like with Die Hard, it's like you know, the guys are there for the shooting scenes. The women are there for like the personal struggle.
Right. They're more worried. Will they still be married by the end of the movie? And we're like, well, is he going to get out of this alive?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of why Die Hard has really still kind of resonated with people, because it's a great action movie. It's like one of the best action movies, but it also kind of has that human element that really draws people in.
And to be fair, guys like that too. I mean, to use the example of Spider-Man, guys would read it to see Spider-Man fighting the Rhino or whatever, but Stan knew that you had to have that, those romantic triangles and things like that going on, the soap opera stuff, to bring the readers back. And guys like that too. They got interested in all.
Yeah, it's like whenever you hear about like people talking about Spider-Man, I'd say people talk about more of the relatability of Peter Parker.
Yeah.
The thing you almost always hear say is he was one of us. Right. He people could actually put themselves in Peter's shoes. Because Peter's still struggling. Like the classic Spider-Man trope of on one side of town it's the Green Goblin, on the other side Aunt May's dying of some illness, and he has to get the serum to her. That's a classic Spider-Man predicament. And people. It's like the whole oh, I got a paycheck. I can't cash it because I can't, they can't identify me.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid reading Spider-Man, and when he runs into Dr. Octopus, and Dr. Octopus beats him down. I mean, he beats. Now I'd seen Superman, Batman, get momentarily defeated, but no, he gets trounced. And when I was a kid, I was like, I've never seen this before. What the hell's going on? The hero just got his ass kicked. I've never seen this happen before, in a very, very purposeful way. And it's like, wow. And it's like, and, when you're growing up, you reach this period when you're an adolescent, when you just feel, oh, the whole world's against me. Peter Parker's your man. I mean,
yeah.
This guy's
speaking of,
I can relate.
Well, just want to note you're also the man, because like what Belmont just said, you can write and draw and you're the nicest guy in the industry. And honestly, I agree,
Well, I think it's because I love my work so much. So
yeah, and it really shows. Like I was actually doing streams earlier today. We were talking about like passion with people and whatnot, and how it kind of shows through with the work. And I think you're a living, breathing embodiment of it, honestly.
Yeah, my enthusiasm runs away with me even to this day. I just love it. I love working.
That's just your inner child. I love
the medium, out.
Yeah, it's a great medium, and I'm happy to be a part of it myself. Yeah. Now, one thing you did kind of a few years back is the Expendables comic book. How did that kind of come out? Because like to me, that thing kind of came out of left field.
Well, you mean Expendables Go to Hell?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did an Expendables prequel comic for Dynamite Comics.
Okay.
And, Stallone, I did it from the screenplay. I hadn't, the movie wasn't out yet. And so some time goes by and I get a phone call from Sylvester Stallone. And he told me how much he liked the comic and how I really got his characters, and particularly the kind of dialogue that he had in the screenplay. It didn't necessarily make it to the movie, but he said he really liked the way that I was able to, capture that flow of dialogue. And he asked me if I wanted to have an opportunity to do rewrites on Expendables 2, because he wasn't happy with the screenplay. And so they flew me out, and I had a meeting with the producers. And I didn't know this, but every meeting with producers goes terrific. That doesn't mean anything. So
yeah,
they didn't really want me. Sly wanted me on it, but they really didn't want me. So
this comic book guy, this old comic book guy.
Yep. And they said, they offered me some, lowball amount for a lot of work. And I'm like, no, I can't take that.
That's enough to say that they tried, but low enough to know you won't take it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the thing is that Sly never, and he insists I call him Sly, by the way, he didn't forget me. He kept calling me, and he got me work doing web content for Lionsgate. He got me a job doing dialogue on an Expendables game and stuff like that. And so every once in a while he would call. I mean, I talked to him just about a month ago because he's moved to Florida, where I live permanently. Okay. And so he just wanted to let me know that he was a Floridian now. And but along the way, he was telling me that the Expendables movie he really wanted to make was Expendables Go to Hell. And he described the plot line to me, and I said, they're never going to let you make that. And he goes, well, I know that. I know they're never going to let me make it.
Well, let's make it, but not as a movie.
And I said, well, it'd make an awesome comic book. And so we talked to one independent company, but they kind of dragged their feet, and they really weren't up and running. So that's when I turned to Richard Meyer, who was the world's biggest Expendables fan. And I called Richard because I'd already sold Sly on him. I told Sly all about Richard and everything else. And Sly's like, yeah, if he wants to do it, we'll do it. So I called Richard and I said, look, sit down. I have something to tell you. And he's laughing. And I said, oh, seriously, sit down.
Because you knew what was going to happen.
Yeah. I said, do you want to write would you like to publish an Expendables comic? And he's like, you mean like a comic like the Expendables? I said, no. The actual Expendables. It's from a plot line by Sylvester Stallone, and I would do the script. And I said, you can do some scripting too. That's fine. That'd be great. And he's like, yeah, let's do this right away.
It's like you had me at Expendables.
Right. And this was like a Tuesday. We had some art by Friday. I had the first 5 script pages the next day. And we just sort of rolled from there. And we just had carte blanche from Sly to do whatever we wanted. And, he was super happy with the end product. And we're talking about doing future projects with him. So
that's cool.
He's a big comics fan. He likes comics. So
maybe you could do like a Rocky or Rambo comic or something. That'd be cool.
That would be awesome. I could get into that definitely.
Did you like the Creed movies? Because I liked them. I thought.
Yeah, I enjoyed them. I enjoy. I'm one of those rare. I liked Rocky 5. I thought it was a good movie. Nobody else seemed to.
Wow, like. That's a odd opinion, but yeah.
Yeah, it's got one of my favorite Stallone scenes in it. But yeah, I mean, I don't understand the hatred for that movie. So
I don't know either.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine named Hojo, he wanted me to ask you a question. I'm not really sure on the particular, so I'm just going to read it like verbatim. He wants to know what it was like working with Larry Hama, and if you guys still talk today, and if they do still talk. Okay, then never mind. There's more stuff but that's a follow-up question.
Well, working with Larry was a trip. I mean, he was my first big break at Marvel, and Larry's a prickly pear. If you've ever met him, he can be difficult.
I haven't had the pleasure.
And the thing is that when I first learned he was rebooting Savage Tales as an anthology book, and I first heard about it from Hilary Barta, fabulous cartoonist Hilary Barta, and Hilary said, this is a book you might want to be on, because he said I'd heard about it, and he says you should pitch Larry some ideas, and I was aware of Larry Hama, his terrific talent, and he said, but watch out for Larry. He can be a bit of a bastard. He can be a bit hard on you at the beginning. So I was sort of forewarned. And so when I called Larry and said I wanted to pitch some ideas, he goes, why should I hire you? And I said, because you need me. And he says, I need you. And he's like,
that's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it works out for him.
There was a lot of F-bombs after that. And then he said, why do I need you? And I said, well, most comic writers don't know which end of a gun the bullets come out of. And he says, yeah, you're right. I says, well,
especially nowadays.
Yeah, I said, I do. I said, I'll do the homework. I said, I've got to be on this book. I love war stories. I love Western stories. I really want to be on this. So he said, send me some ideas and I'll see if I need you. So I sent them in, and he bought about half of them. Oh, wow. And then from there, he gave me, the Cull backups and Savage Sword, and eventually gave me the Savage Sword lead feature. But, once I got through the acid test, and everybody had to do that with Larry, then, once I proved myself that I was reliable and I could take direction and I didn't have a big ego, then he couldn't do enough for me. So he's just a terrific guy. I mean, what a talent. I mean, this guy can do anything. Play guitar. He can do anything on a comic book. He can letter the comic book. He can do all of that stuff, and act, all the rest of it. That's just a tremendous talent.
Yeah, it's always great when you're working with someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Is there any other artists that you fondly remember working with?
Oh, to make a list would insult about 100 people, because I can't name everybody, but. A lot of people that I've worked with, I've become good friends with. Bo Smith, Flynn Henry, Graham Nolan, Gary Quapis, guys like that. And new friends in recent years, Frank Fosco and Anthony Gonzalez Clark. I mean, we all love comics, so there's that bond. And then when you get to work together and do some good stuff and get a good response, you're sort of friends for life. So,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah.
I've had a great time. I've worked with some people that that I idolized. I got to work with Joe Kubert, Russ Heath, John Buscema. I mean, just like I couldn't believe I was working with these guys that I grew up reading. Jim Aparo. I mean, just terrific guy, and all of them
Legends.
fantastic gentlemen. So,
yeah. So obviously you have your own kind of thing going with Arkhaven Comics. So kind of tell me how that kind of came about and kind of give you an overview of like some of the books you're working on.
well, I said something in an interview or posted something or whatever that got Vox Day's attention, and he contacted me and wanted to know, did I want to work with him? And the idea was that I was free to do whatever I wanted. He was offering me all these different venues to work in and subject matters that I was interested in. And he kept challenging me. Would you want to do this? Would you want to do that? And I like a challenge. So, I just went on board with him. And, I've really enjoyed the experience. He's a different kind of cat, but I like it. And, he warned me that going on board with him would, bring me some heat, which it has, but, I'm used to that.
Heat from the right kind of people, I'd say. You're loved by the right kind of people.
All the same nonsense I've heard, for 20 years. So
yeah,
I mean, it's just, but, so he came up with this idea for ArcTunes, which was it's a free digital web service. So and there's, every genre under the sun there. And I have complete freedom. I mean, so much freedom that, I've launched series without even telling him I was launching them. So, he doesn't know it till he sees them show up on the site, but he's totally fine with it. And that's the kind of creative freedom I've always looked for.
Yeah. You won't find creative freedom over at Marvel and DC nowadays, that's for sure.
No, and I don't think they want actual professionals. I mean, I'm not the only guy who's either unemployed or underemployed by Marvel and DC who should be working. Yeah. There's a lot of people who are at the peak of their talents who should be working at Marvel and DC, but they're not wanted.
In your opinion, what do you think's going on? I mean, obviously, I'm more of a layman. So I have more of a layman's perspective, but as someone in the industry, what do you think is going on in there?
Well, I think they, in the 90s, they started reaching outside of comics for talent that weren't comic book lifers, and they opened the door to what I call tourists, who eventually took them over. I mean, the people editing at Marvel and DC are not comic book people for the most part. They are people who are looking to enhance their resume for when they go get a job at Vanity Fair or MTV. That'll look really cool that, I worked for Marvel Comics for a few years. Whereas every editor I've ever worked for in comics prior to that, they were in comics for life. They were in comics because they loved the medium and they were never leaving. So they were dedicated to the continuation, not only of the medium, but of the companies and characters that they worked for and with.
Right.
This new crowd could care less if there's comic books in 2 years from now, or if they could care less if Superman is still beloved. They'll just tear it all down for their own careers. And that's what's going on. And it's obviously toxic, because the readership is, lower than it's ever been.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just kind of interesting because, nowadays work culture is kind of speaks to the greater work culture is like there's really no company loyalty anymore. I mean, to be fair, a lot of these corporations really haven't done stuff to retain those employee loyalties. No. So it's like it's kind of the mentality that it's kind of outside mentality affecting comics,
Yeah, I mean they haven't been real good to freelancers, it's because there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money, but they don't seem to want to share it. I mean, I just got a royalty statement from Marvel that was 12 pages long of all the stuff that they had reprinted or done digital or whatever, and 12 pages of lists of all this material, and the check was $73.74. So it's like, how does that math work? Compared to DC, where that check would have been a whole lot larger for that number. So it's how the companies are run and their unwillingness to share in the bounty, because there's a huge bounty from the merchandising and the movies and the TV and all that.
Yeah. Now, would you say it's more because you were more prolific at DC Comics and you were there kind of and created some really important characters and storylines?
No, it's the rates. It's the rates. The difference in DC and Marvel is when you work for DC, you have a contract and they owe you that money. They are royalties and they owe them to you. At Marvel, it's phrased differently, that they are gratuities. They do not owe them to you. They can stop giving them to you at any time.
Okay.
The checks they send me are gifts. In your Marvel contract, if you work at Marvel, you really should look at it, particularly if you're an artist, because even the return of your original artwork is considered a gratuity that they can cut off at any time and just stop returning your artwork. So it's different. And then even at DC, they renegotiated with Warner's net receipts, which means people like me and DC Comics as well get a lot less money from the movies and TV than they did previously.
Oh, that sucks.
They renegotiated their deal. So,
right.
Kind of like negotiating with Darth Vader. So.
I have altered the deal. Play. I do not alter it further.
Exactly. But, I think if Jeanette Kahn or Paul Levitz were still in charge of DC, it would never have happened. They would have stood up.
Yeah, because that's kind of the thing. In a lot of these shows, and I have kind of been using your stories. For example, kind of going back to Titans in season 1, Dick was a cop in Detroit. That's not exactly what it was, but it was kind of reminiscent of Dick Grayson being a cop. I'm sure they're obviously drawing from that era of Nightwing.
Well, DC. To be fair to DC, they're beginning to cut checks. These are discretionary checks, but they're beginning to cut checks for borrowing story content from previous material.
Yeah.
So I mean, I saw money off the last Birds of Prey movie. I have no idea why. I didn't see the movie, but apparently they used a whole lot of my material. Yeah, and then apparently they've used quite a bit of my material in this new Batman movie. So,
I remember thinking talk about that. What did you think of have you seen the new Batman movie?
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay. Have you what was the last one you saw?
I saw Dark Knight Rises. That's the last thing I've seen from DC.
Oh, so you haven't even seen any of the Snyder stuff?
No, I didn't see any of that.
Okay. Just really doesn't interest you?
Just no interest. No interest. So.
Yeah, I wonder if you ever see any stuff from Arrow, because Arrow borrowed a lot from Batman.
I saw my youngest son was really into Arrow, and you end up watching stuff with your kids. So
right.
I probably saw the first 2 seasons of that, and there was a lot of stuff borrowed.
Yeah, the first 2 seasons of Arrow are considered the best by a lot of people, and then it kind of faltered off and whatnot.
Yeah, it was it was fun stuff, and I think we watched the first couple of seasons of Flash. That was fun.
Yeah, again,
beyond that, I didn't see anything.
So. Yeah, what are some adaptations that you do enjoy and whatnot?
Oh boy. Geez, that's a tough one. So many of them missed the mark. I mean, I really liked the first Iron Man movie. I liked all the Iron Man movies, particularly the first one, because it was so.
Yeah, the first one has a certain grit to it.
Yeah, and it was close to the source material. And that's a hell of an origin story. And to see it dramatized like that. I always thought it was a good origin story. But then you see it turn into a movie, and you're like, no, this was a great origin story. And
yeah, because
the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. And I really like the Ant-Man movies. Of all the Marvel output recently, the 2 Ant-Man movies I think I enjoyed more than anything else.
Yeah, I will say the Ant-Man movies, they kind of have a certain heart to them. Especially the first one, because Edgar Wright was actually supposed to be doing it, and you can there's still Edgar Wright kind of left his mark on the first movie. Right.
But they're fun. They're tightly plotted. They move along, and there's not a lot of sentiment and mawkishness. And I don't know that as the MCU goes on, DC's always been this way, but as the MCU goes on, it gets more and more dark and depressing, and it's like, wow, this isn't fun. I like when the heroes win.
Yeah. I don't mind some dark and gritty, but it kind of gets to a point where it's I read comic books to escape, not to remind me of how crappy my life is.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's yeah. So we're kind of getting on the 40-minute mark. How about I could how about I kind of show people where they can find you and
Sure.
some of your stuff.
Sure.
So let me just pull that up. Yep, I had a tab dedicated to that specifically. All right. Okay, just gonna share my screen. All right, so this is your YouTube channel. How long has it been running?
I guess I've had a channel for maybe 2 years, 3 years, but
Okay.
I was doing weekly Ask Chuck Dixon's. Now they're bi-weekly because I'm just busy writing, so there's not a whole lot of time.
Yeah, I get
I
that.
spend way too much time putting the videos together.
I love the thumbnails, like this Nick Cage one in particular. I just like
Nick Cage's Shaka Zulu.
Oh, that reminds me. Have you seen the new Dredd movie that came out with Carl Urban?
Oh yeah. I've watched that.
I loved it.
I watched that about 5 times.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a perfect action film. Absolutely perfect action.
Perfect and perfect for the character.
Yeah.
And so if anyone wants to get any of your books, they're available on Amazon.
Yep.
I love these thumbnails. They're really cool. Who did your thumbnails?
I don't know.
The covers.
I don't know who does the art on the Levon books.
So what's the Levon Kade books? Can you tell us about those?
Well, it arises from the fact that the Punisher is the only character that I wrote that I still think of stories for, because I really like that, vigilante, outlaw, whatever, badass guy. So I created Levon Kade as a more reality-based version of Frank Castle.
Oh,
he's a former Marine, but he's from Alabama. He's got a young daughter. He's a single dad. And like Frank Castle, he's always getting himself into a lot of trouble. He makes a lot of enemies.
Okay.
And, so I've just written, I think, the 12th book. I just handed in to the editor today.
Nice.
So it scratches an itch that I have.
Yeah, obviously. If you wrote 12 of them, it certainly scratches an itch, all right.
Then I've gotten into the characters, and the people that read them really they love the characters. So
yeah, definitely, definitely for people who, Punisher fans want kind of more stories, this would definitely be up their alley.
Yeah, it's definitely it's gritty, bloody, gruesome action, but there's heart to it too, because there's something at stake, which was never true with Frank Castle. There's never really anything at stake with Frank Castle other than his own life. But Levon has, a family to look after.
So he has stuff to lose. It makes it more higher stakes and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. It heightens the suspense. So
I assume this is your Western.
Yeah, I've written 2 Westerns, Snakehand and La Gringa.
Mm-hmm.
They're both set in a shared universe. I'm working on a 3rd one called Gallows. That's all set in the same shared universe.
Nice. And then if anyone want to keep up to the date, this is your website, Arcaven.
Yeah, Arcaven, Arctunes.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's free. It's free and they're high res. You can read these on your big screen TV in your family room. They're crystal.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah. So any device you have, you can read them.
Nice. So what do you got? What's in store for the future of you? Any plans? Anything you want to share?
Well, I recently completed 2 projects that I can't talk about yet because they haven't been officially announced, but they're
fair
huge.
enough.
I'm not a hyperbolic guy, but both of these are huge. So
are they with like major companies or are they?
No, they're not with major companies. They're just major. They're household name characters. You know these characters. So, one I worked on for a long time. I have a history with. The other one I've never worked with. So. That's all I can tell you because I don't want to spoil the surprise. Oh, I can't spoil surprise. Both publishers have sworn me to secrecy.
Okay.
But both projects are completed. They're ready to go.
So outside of stuff that you may or may not be working on, is there any characters that like you wouldn't mind working on again, or working on entirely? Like do you want to do a Zorro story, or Robin Hood story, or do you want to like do Green Arrow or something?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a little bit of Lone Ranger work, both in comics and prose. And I love that
Right.
character. I'd love to return to something like that. But people always say, would you go back to Batman? And it's like, I was 11 years on Batman. I mean, pretty much said all I have to say. Would I enjoy writing Batman again? Yeah, sure. But if I never write it again, I'm not really going to miss it, because I think I
Yeah.
said what I have to say about it.
Are there any characters in the Batman family you would jump at the chance to write on again?
I'd love to do some more Bane with Graham Nolan. I mean, we have this whole career in mind for him. He's come to life in our heads, and we talk about him all the time. But
Yeah.
I don't think that opportunity is going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, that sucks. Is there any artist that you haven't worked with yet that you'd love to work with?
Wow. No, it's a bunch of guys I'd love to work with again. I can't think of any offhand that I haven't worked with.
Have you done anything with Greg Capullo?
No, I talked to him early in his career, like way back when.
Yeah, because him and Zack Snyder's run is kind of legendary at this point. I'd love to see like Greg Capullo's art with your writing. That just sounds so perfect.
Yeah, I've never. I mean, I know who he is, and like I said, I talked to him when he was just starting out. But I don't. I can't think. I mean, there's guys I'd love to work with again, but I can't think of anybody new that I haven't worked with. So,
okay. Well, yeah, we're getting on to be the 50-minute mark. Honestly, I'm surprised it went this long. I really enjoyed talking to you, Chuck. Like I said, you're one of my heroes. You really inspired me. I'm repping my favorite character here.
Very cool.
Thank you. I speak for all the fans. Thank you for writing these amazing stories, and I, for one, look forward to seeing what you're going to be doing.
Well, thank you for having me on, and thanks to everybody who watched and listened.
All right. So thank you, everyone, for stopping by. Appreciate it. You have a good one.